sell candy and gum. Would you like to buy some? Everything is $1. The candy and gum is behind my chair. Please.
My first delivery order of the night brought me to a fish market, which is good because it's right across the street from a Dunkin' Donuts. Which, hopefully their coffee's still fresh at 5:30 in the evening. So I'm walking over there now and getting some while Fish Market finishes up the order that I have to pick up and take to Gardendale, Alabama. Hi. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. Can I just get a medium coffee?
Hot coffee?
Yes, please.
Do you want cream and sugar?
No, just black.
That's for yourself.
Okay. 307. Thank you. Thank you. Good day. So as I was waiting for my coffee, which by the way is very hot, so it's probably fresh. Thanks, Duncan. Got a notification that my food is ready across the street. I'm walking now. Fish Market. Okay, thank you so much. Is that all of? Okay. All right, have a good night. Yeah, the robot voice that you heard back there outside of the fish market was none other than the Birmingham Candyman. And if you're from Birmingham, Alabama, like I am, you will recognize that almost instantly. He just appears in heavily trafficked spots around the city to sell like candy and gum. He's a completely paralyzed individual, and I don't know what happens. I don't know. I guess somebody probably drops him off at like the fish market, or the other night I saw him outside of Virginia Sanford Theater after the evening production of Peter Pan had gotten out. There are all these families from the suburbs coming through, kind of not used to seeing people in wheelchairs who can't move or speak, selling them gum from a backpack with a Stephen Hawking voice. And yeah, he's just been doing this for years and years. For a while, I actually thought that he had passed away, because I went for like about a year and a half without seeing him, but then he just came back, right? And he's it's almost like a sign of summer to see the Birmingham Candyman. Really is. That's not true. I've bought something from him before, and it's almost like, just a testament to how kind people are here in the South, and how much you can trust them in a way. I don't know if he would get the same kind of treatment anywhere else in the world, but nobody steals from him. It would be very easy to steal from him. He cannot run after you. Or accuse you. You could just go up and take his backpack full of Hershey's bars and Snickers and Doublemint gum, and you could just run off with it, and nobody would know. It'd be a really terrible thing to do, but there are terrible people in this world, but somehow, as far as I know, nobody's ever taken advantage of him. So, and yeah, he I don't know if I picked it up on the recording just now, but he was talking about how he had just written a book called The Birmingham Candyman. It was available on his website, so I'm going to go check that out a little bit later. But yeah, right now I'm on my way to Gardendale, Alabama. I'm about 11 minutes out. What am I? I'm heading north on Interstate 65 toward Huntsville. I usually do not like to deliver food to the exurbs, almost like the country. But this order was kind of worth it. It was like a $19 order from the fish market. Go there, pick it up, get a cup of coffee while I'm waiting, and just take it out like 20 minutes out there, and then come back to downtown Birmingham and continue delivering. So that's what I'm doing tonight, working for, I'm gigging, I'm moonlighting. Nobody ever really uses the term moonlighting anymore. It's weird. It was the name of a very popular show in the 1980s, which I guess I was alive when that show was on, but I wasn't really aware of it. It's kind of an adult show. And it was like Bruce Willis before he did Die Hard, and Sybil Shepherd after she had been famous. And kind of went through like a very long period where she was not famous and was kind of like Poison for a while, box office wise. And yeah, they played like two detectives who I don't know if they were like moonlighting. I think it was like their full-time job. But moonlighting is a term used to describe like a night job that you take, a job that you take that's outside of your primary gig, that you get paid a little bit of extra money for. And these days everybody calls it like gigging. They call it the side hustling. Those are the popular terms, but I really prefer the term moonlighting. There's something a lot more evocative about that, like just something you do at night, under the neon lights of the city. I don't know. There's just something that's incredibly like just kind of recalls just detective film noir aesthetic. Like John Candy as the cab driver in Heavy Metal. I don't know. I've always just been attracted to, and I've romanticized that idea of just the roaming anonymous gig worker, out there in the city, who kind of gets into like kind of some wacky adventures every once in a while. Sometimes they may even be erotic adventures. I've never gotten into any of those. I'm happily married, but yeah, I would never tell anyway. But this is Mike Booty. This is the Midnight Citizen Show, and yeah, for those of you who have been listening to me for a while, and you're happy that I'm back. This is the third show I've recorded in as many weeks, and you're kind of wondering why I'm not doing studio shows these days. I guess I can talk about that a little bit later. I won't bore you with it here at the beginning of the show when I'm actually trying to attract listeners who may be new. But nevertheless, I just kind of decided to make my peace with the fact that these days I'm always going, and I just simply don't have time to sit down and record a show at home, because I'm not technically unemployed. Am I? Listen, I make a primary source of income as a graduate student at the university here in town, I get a stipend once a month that supports me somewhat, but in order to continue supporting myself and bring income in for my wife and me, I have to go out and I have to moonlight, and I have to do a bunch of really random jobs to just keep the money coming in. And I've been doing this now for the last year. A year ago I left my job teaching high school English, and ever since then I've just been delivering a lot of food for Grubhub, but I've also just been taking like any old job that comes along that is safe and interesting and fun, if it happens to be, and something that just interests me. And I've always just really enjoyed being in my car and making money in my car, driving for dollars, as it were. I've never been very satisfied with jobs where I just kind of have to stay in one place all day long. And I can take them and I can find happiness in them, like teaching, just being in a classroom all day long. And teaching was never really that hard for me because you go in and you're just kind of moving around all day long. But jobs where you move around and then you just kind of like sit there for hours and hours and hours, say like at a desk or behind a counter or something like that, I've never been happy with that. And so like I've always just wanted to have a job and be in a position where I can just go into my car whenever I want to and just like turn on the meter and just go. And for years and years, that was kind of an unattainable possibility. I remember like as early as 19 years old going down to the yellow cab station in downtown Birmingham and just asking them if I could be a cab driver, because I wanted that job so badly, just to be in a car and drive around all day long. And I was too young for it. They said I had to be like 25 to do that job. And so several years later, like 6 years later, I'm like working at Starbucks to support myself right out of college. And I go down there again, and this time I'm old enough and they let me do it. And I drove a cab for about a week. I made some pretty good money in that week, but I gave it up because as nice as it was, as fun as it was to kind of drive around and just be your own boss, it was also incredibly dangerous. I went to some very, very bad parts of town because in a town like Birmingham, where everybody drives, the people who are going to take cabs are not necessarily, executives. They're people who don't really have a whole lot of money in the first place, and I would find myself at the end of almost every single fare, like negotiating with my passenger, and eventually just acquiescing to whatever they came up with, just so I could get them out of my cab, because I was afraid that the next step might turn violent. And not only that, but I was driving around in like incredibly old cars that would just break down all the time, and like I think in the week that I drove, like my cab broke down like 3 times. But I remember it was cab 95, and every time after that, for years, I would be driving around town in my own car, and I would see cab 95. And I was like, oh, that's my car still on the road somehow. I don't know if I've ever really talked about that on the show before. I've had a lot of really weird jobs in my life, and that by far was probably the most risky, I'll definitely say. Although I've had some pretty tense moments on this job. And I've made some rules for myself over the years that I've been doing this. I've been doing this for about 5 years now. It's just never accept an order that goes someplace that you don't know where it is, you've never been. And, yeah. If you do that, you'll be okay, most likely. All right, I'm in Gardendale now. I'm gonna drop off this order. All right, I'm back in Birmingham now. Just sitting in the parking lot of Ted's Neighborhood Restaurant. Just waiting for a call. Waiting for an order to come through. It's been pretty busy today, actually. I went out and delivered during lunch today and made something like, I think it was like $62 in a little more than an hour and a half. It's pretty busy for lunch. And yeah, it's slower right now for dinner than it was for lunch. Ted's is closed. It's just open for lunch. I used to go here and have lunch with my dad quite a lot when I was an graduate student at UAB, and my dad was still working for the bank downtown. Ted's is kind of halfway between downtown and South Side. It's at Midtown, right? So yeah, the cab driving job just didn't pan out. Like, big surprise. It just was not. I was not the average cab driver. It's a 25 milk toast white. Yeah, it just didn't fit the profile of the typical Birmingham cab driver. And so, yeah, I left it. I just went back. I left it, and I went back to work for Starbucks. And of course, I was moonlighting as a taxi driver. I was still working for Starbucks that whole time. I'd work for them during the day, and then I would go and drive a cab at night. And pretty soon it just got to be, not only was it just not safe, it also was just very exhausting. And I couldn't make a living just on driving a cab. And so gave it up. And yeah, that was 2008 or 9 or so. And just, that would be many years before this whole idea of, just the gig economy would really take off. Beginning with things like Uber and DoorDash. Just get in your car and drive for dollars. Work whenever you wanted to. And this has been a thing for many years. Work, make your own hours, be your own boss. And every time you hear that, I think we're just conditioned to think it's a scam. And finally, these companies come along, and it's not a scam. They really are like fulfilling this need that exists in cities all over, all across America, and really the world. Cab drivers just are not reliable, and they charge too much money. And so just rent out your car. Just go pick people up and take them to places, and they'll give you money for it. As long as you can clear a background check. I mean, it kind of sounds dangerous, and they've definitely had some snafus over the years, like Uber has and Lyft has. But overall, it's pretty much worked. There's been a few dead people, but mostly it's worked. And yeah, like Uber and Lyft have been very successful. It took them years to get to Birmingham, but they finally got here. I could not drive for them because I had a 2004 Honda Accord, and you had to have a car that was like a lot newer than that. So, and the cab driving experience, was still very sour in my mind. So I decided while I was teaching to give food delivery a try. Just go out at night and just deliver some food. And that's what I did in like the summer of 2019. I think I started driving for DoorDash. And just really enjoyed it. It was like everything that I kind of wanted the moonlighting thing to be. Just driving around all day long and going home whenever I wanted to, making as much money as I felt like making. And went really well. And about a year later or so, I started driving for Grubhub, and the pandemic happened, and the food delivery business just like really took off because restaurants couldn't operate with people coming in and eating, so they had to take, get people like me to take their food to the customers, and it was just a really amazing time to be alive for a food delivery driver. I did very well during the pandemic. It was a terrible time in every other way. So, yeah. Police. That's an ambulance. Yeah, just driving around Birmingham. Oh, I got an offer. Applebee's, $13.32. I'll take it. Why not? Just picked up the order from Applebee's, and I'm heading out to Hueytown right now. I never deliver this far outside of Birmingham proper, but today just this thing's been taking me all over the place. I can reject these orders if I want, but I also just like the idea of perpetual motion, just taking any order that comes around and just seeing where the night takes me. It's one of the things I really do like about delivering food, is that you just never know where you're going to end up. And I mean, you can control where you go, but sometimes it's just kind of fun just to just accept whatever order that comes along. And a lot of times orders will kind of keep pushing you further and further away from home, and then maybe you'll get some orders that actually pull you back toward home. And yeah, this week I can kind of afford to do this, just kind of work all night without really consideration for what I have to do tomorrow. Last week wasn't like that, because I had to spend the mornings teaching summer camps, and so my nights were all cut short, so I couldn't I couldn't deliver food as much. But that was okay. Yeah, that's another one of my moonlight jobs, even though I do it during the day, is every June for about the past 8 years I deliver food. I teach summer camp. Yeah, the past few years I've been teaching 2 summer camps, one at the school where I worked and one at Virginia Sanford Theater. The theater camp. So one's an academic camp and one's a theater camp. And this year I only taught the theater camp because I don't work at the school anymore. So, yeah. And yeah, I taught playwriting for 2 weeks at the theater summer camp. And I talked about this last week. I don't write plays. I don't do theater. But it's just kind of like the theater camp uses me as like a sneaky way to tell the parent to get the kids to do some writing over the summer. So, yeah. I'm heading on the interstate toward Tuscaloosa right now, and there's actually a typo on my Google Maps. I've never seen a typo on Google Maps before. It's weird. It says, instead of taking me toward Tuscaloosa, it says Tuscaloosa. Tuscaloosa. Oh, man. That's weird. I've never seen that before. Yeah, so my wife and I teach summer camp together. She teaches a Shakespeare class. How the kids, she gives them Shakespeare monologues and teaches them how to act for Shakespeare, which is a totally different way of acting in any other kind of play in the 21st century. And I teach them playwriting, and it's just something we've been doing together for the last few years, and I really enjoy it. And yeah, we finished up on Friday. We the kids had like a big showcase. They showed their parents on stage what they had done all week long, and They performed some of the plays that they had written in my class. It was a very rewarding experience, and it was strange because I haven't been in front of students teaching them consistently since last year. That was the first time I had worked with young kids since I left my job teaching. And even when I was teaching, high school, I was teaching older kids, and these were like middle school age kids, and some of them elementary school. And it's a very, difficult job teaching kids. Sometimes it really does feel like you're herding cats or something, to use that cliche. But when things come together, occasionally, you'll just get magic. Like the kids are very, very smart, and they may not seem like it sometimes, but sometimes they'll pick up on something and they'll make you see things in a whole new light. And one of the things about teaching is that teaching material is something you do over and over and over again, to the point where it's just ad nauseum. And you're just like, if I have to talk one more time and explain what conflict is, dramatic conflict, I'm just going to die. And it just is very boring sometimes to just teach the same thing over and over again, and keep it fresh for students, because if you don't keep it fresh, then the students are going to pick up on that, and they're going to sense that you're bored, and then they're going to get bored. But if you do your job and you just try to maintain some enthusiasm for what you're teaching, every once in a while the kids will pick up on something that you haven't thought of before, and they'll kind of spit it back at you, and it'll suddenly, that's kind of not a great way to say it, but it'll suddenly make you understand something in a new light and see things with a new perspective. And it's one of the really fun things about teaching. And also just to see the kids like show off what they've been working on, to have them actually write like an original play in my class that was maybe not the most mature play, involved like a lot of bathroom humor and all that stuff, and characters with weird names, and it wasn't David Mamet, but it was something, and they were proud of it, and they showed it off to their parents, and their parents laughed, and they got a round of applause at the end, and they bowed. And it was something that on Friday I was like, this is what I enjoy. I enjoy teaching, I really do. And I haven't given up on teaching at all. I'm just not doing it right now regularly. I will be teaching in the fall and in the spring, and I'll be teaching freshman composition at the university. So the kids who are coming in and they're just getting out of high school, or they're starting school again after a while away, and they I'll be working with them on composition. So as part of my grad school, so I'll be working on my thesis, and I'll be teaching freshman comp at the same time. And teaching is not necessarily something that I intended to do while I was working on my thesis, but it's something that I do have to do as a requirement of my stipend. And I'm totally fine with it, because I would someday like to be a college professor. It's something that I would like to do, and that's where I'm heading. Teaching high school was never the end goal for me. It was always just a stepping stone to get to teaching college. I wanted to teach high school and have it in my background, but not let it be the end-all be-all of what I want to do. But I don't know, the weird thing about it is, in the last year that I haven't been teaching, and I've just been taking classes at the university, trying to finish up my master's, and driving around in my car and just doing a bunch of moonlighting it's strange, because I've just been enjoying it so much. I've been having a great time. Just waking up every morning and not consistently having a place to go to that I have to spend the whole day at, and I know that someday that I'm going to have to return to that life, and I'm going to have to return to being tied down at a job. And the only thing I hope is that job will not be something that I think about being tied down at, that I'll think about, that I'll enjoy doing. But right now I'm doing something that I've always wanted to do, and I always remind myself of that, and I really never forget it. Every time I go and pick up food in a restaurant, as a matter of fact, to deliver it, I just think about the fact that, like, I could be either in a restaurant working for like 8 hours, or I could just be out going from restaurant to restaurant and delivering food, and just like getting out into the city and just driving around and just enjoying the night air. And the window's up right now because I'm recording, but as soon as I hit pause on my recorder, I'm going to roll that window down because it's a beautiful night here in Birmingham, Alabama. And I never want delivering food to be the end all be all. I mean, I don't want to be doing this when I'm 90, if I make it until then. But I just, like, for now I'm enjoying it. I am. I mean, I just 5 years ago, this would not have been a possibility for me. This would not have been, like, none of the food delivery companies were here in Birmingham, and just none of the rideshare companies were here in Birmingham. And it's possible now to, get out there and make money from your car and be your own boss in a way that, previously you would have to go and drive a taxi cab or something like that, or deliver newspapers, which I also did. When I was in grad school the first time, about 12 years ago, I did deliver newspapers for a year and a half. So, but yeah, just for now, I'm enjoying it. I have no idea where I am right now. Somewhere in Hueytown. I don't know. Yeah, that last order brought me to this extended stay hotel where, man, there were just like people all over the place, just like running around without shirts on, no shoes, sitting in rocking chairs outside their hotel rooms. Man, it just looked like something out of the Grapes of Wrath or something. It's wild, man. And I'm about to pass by Alabama Adventure. This is the amusement park that was supposed to be a really big revenue generator for this area about 25 years ago. I've only been to it once, and that was the summer that it opened back in 1997. Yeah, it just never took off. Mostly because people, a lot of them just don't want to come out to this side of town. It's sad, but it's true. It's just not, Bessemer, Alabama is just not a place you think about as being a recreation destination. And yet it's still open out here. It's gone through like a whole lot of owners, this amusement park, over the last half or quarter century. It's now Splash Adventure. It was originally called Visionland when it opened in the summer of 1997. And I think it was the mayor of Bessemer, what was his name, Larry Langford, who later became the mayor of Birmingham, and before he was kicked out of office and then indicted on a number of corruption charges. And he is, I believe he's now in prison, or he may have died. I can't remember. But yeah, he went away. But he was the mastermind behind Visionland. And it was probably just knowing that guy, it was probably just a big old ruse, a tax shelter or something like that. I don't know. But I did have fun when I went out to Visionland that one time when I was it was a summer before I was a freshman in high school. I went out there with my friend Joel Walker, and my sister Melissa drove us out there. And that was actually the first date that Melissa had with her now husband Ryan. Yeah, they had met in college, and they wanted like kind of neutral territory, neutral turf, to have their first date. And they met out there, and me and Joel were supposed to kind of provide some levity, I guess, for the situation, for the awkward situation of the first date. And so I remember me and Joel just kind of went off on our own once Melissa realized that Ryan wasn't going to be a creep. And yeah, they had their first date, and I think that was about 6 years later or so they got married, I think. No, actually, really 8 years. I think they got married in 2004. Yeah, 2004. So yeah, they've been married 19 years now. So thanks, Larry Langford. Your legacy. Visionland. Yeah. So yeah, I'm driving back to Birmingham now. I found the interstate. Got on Google Maps. Found the interstate. One of the things I'm really proud of is that I am part of the last generation that actually had to use maps to get around, actually use physical maps. And when you couldn't find a map, you would stop and you would ask directions at a gas station, and just had to have a really good sense of direction. And then around the time I started, I was driving a cab, TomToms came out, GPS navigation units. And then they just came native in every smartphone about a year or so after that. And yeah, the kids today will never know what it's like to stop on the side of the road and unfold a gigantic map. I remember in the 5th grade, we had to learn how to read a map. Like, our teacher gave us maps and we had to look at them, and then she taught us, like, we had to learn how to fold them up. She said, if you don't learn how to fold them up properly, you're just going to ruin them and crinkle them, and it'll ruin the map and you'll be lost. And we had a map folding contest in the 5th grade. She said, our teacher said, folding up a map properly and quickly is a sign of intelligence. And I was able to do it very well. I was like, all you had to do is look for the creases and just follow the creases in the map. And I was very proud. I don't know if I came in first, but I definitely didn't come in last. So, yeah. Yeah, I haven't been lost. I think the last time I remember legitimately being lost to the point of panicking was probably about 13 years ago, 14 years ago maybe. Where I had actually done a moonlight job, another gig job. I had gotten hired for the day by the American Civil Liberties Union. Or wait, what's that thing called? The ACLU, right? American Civil Liberties Union? Yeah, that's what it does. Yeah, they had hired me for the day to be like a videographer to go and film interviews with a bunch of migrant workers in Albertville, Alabama, who were getting discriminated against by the state government. And yeah, it was like a whole thing without getting into it. It was a big story at the time. I think like the state legislature had passed a bill that required that all the children of laborers provide their birth certificates and provide proof of citizenship, right? So yeah, it was a whole thing at the years before the Dream Act, where the adult migrants, the illegal laborers, could obviously be looked into, but their children were sort of protected. And yeah, the Alabama state legislature tried to pass a law against that. They were kind of hurting themselves, because what happened was that there were all these chicken plants in Albertville, Alabama. There are all these chicken plants up there, and they were like almost 60% staffed by migrant workers, some of who were legal, but some who were not. And I think the migrant workers, all of them, just all across the board, started living en masse because they believed that it was like a kind of a slippery slope to basically just being discriminated against on a larger scale. And this was a very long time ago, so I'm trying to remember it as best I could. But nevertheless, I went up there to Albertville. I drove my car up there, and I didn't remember how I got there. And I didn't have a GPS. I didn't have a TomTom. I didn't have a map. And when I drove up there that day, I was like, oh, it's pretty easy. It's just a couple of right turns. And it was night by the time I had made my way back, and I just got completely lost, and I just didn't know. I think I had to end up finding a gas station, just a series of gas stations, to get back on the interstate. So, yeah. But thinking about it, another gig that I had many years before that, where I also was in my car driving, and I would get lost frequently, was when I sold knives for Cutco. It was a job I had when I was a freshman in college. The summer of my freshman year, I got a job where it was pretty much a multi-level marketing thing, but structured in a way that it wasn't illegal. It's kind of like Mary Kay, or just these companies that walk a very, very fine line between being like legitimate sales companies and just total pyramid schemes. But yeah, I was working for Cutco, and I had to make appointments with people to go out and do like these in-home demonstrations of knives. I was a traveling salesman. Another job that frequently in pop culture leads to like erotic misadventures. But that didn't happen to me. And yeah, I would just be going all over the suburbs and the exurbs of Birmingham, Alabama, in my car, just going to obscure addresses and getting lost, and like ending up on dirt roads in like 3 feet of mud, and completely lost, having no idea where I was, and spending so much money in gas that the job just was not worth it. And that was just like the last time. I mean, honestly, I was lost without any sense of direction, and just like when it's just so hard to like explain to like the students that I've had, and I'm not that old. It's weird. I was just thinking today, like I'm 40 years old. Okay, that's really not that old. It may be old to somebody who's maybe like 20 or something, or maybe even 30, but I don't feel like I'm that old. I think maybe one of the reasons being is because I've never had like a consistent job. My whole life has just been kind of going from job to job. And I have things that I'm working toward, and I have like a job, like a career that I'm interested in, which is, education and that seems to be like my final stopping point in life. I think that's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life in various capacities, is working in education. But I don't know if I'm ever going to be in a job consistently where I work for one place for years and years and years, like my dad did. You know, my dad worked for the bank for like 38 years, and my mom was a teacher in various places for her entire career, which is almost 4 decades. But, you know, her last job she was at for about 12 years before she retired. And I think that may be one of the reasons I don't feel so old, is because just my entire life has just been going from job to job. And just when you do that, you never really feel exactly like your adult life begins. And that's weird, because we do live in like a world where we're conditioned to believe that, you know, we are all supposed to be like adults with like just a regular job, you know, and that's all perfectly well and good, but I mean, I see myself as an adult, but I just don't, for some reason, see myself as that old, and because I don't think 40 is that old, but yeah, but then when I'm standing in front of like a bunch of students who are, you know, anywhere between the ages of 9 and 17, and yeah, I mean, that'll make you feel kind of old, because you're talking to them about maps, and these kids were born after smartphones came out, and even being in college, you know, being in this summer class that I'm taking, for instance, is a really good example, because it's a 400, 500 level class, meaning that there are some undergraduates mixed in with the graduate students. And so the undergraduates, you know, are very young. And I was talking with my professor the other night about, somebody had talked about how college was a scam. Somebody in class mentioned that. And my professor said, like, well, why are you in it? Why are you taking part in the scam? It's like very polite, but also kind of like a bit of a snarky response to what was admittedly kind of a dumb thing to say. And yeah, my professor just said, you know, college is expensive because of all of these resources that are here, all of these, you know, disability services and advisors, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in administration in the back end that makes college expensive today in a way that it was not just 20 years ago. Like, colleges are kind of doing a lot more for students than they used to. And anyway, you may agree with that or you may not, but the point is that I was telling my professor that, yeah, when I started college back in 2001 at UAB, there was like none of the stuff that we have today. The writing center where you can go to get free writing help, the disability services was kind of a joke. And I just heard somebody behind me being like, I wasn't even born in 2001. Somebody behind me was like talking about like how old I was. It's just like, you know. But yeah, that's kind of the thing about my philosophy about education, is that education is not, for some reason, we're conditioned to get our education all in one go, right? We go to school for 12 years, and then we go to college for 4 years, and then we get a job, and then we're adults, and that's the general path, and that's not really the case anymore. And really, I gave a presentation at this conference back in February about non-traditional students, which is about 60% of college students define themselves as non-traditional, meaning that they're over the age of 23. So they more and more people are actually now seeing education as something that is spread out throughout your life. And that's what I believe it should be. Because nobody is really ready to, nobody just goes through education for 16 years and then is suddenly just like an expert. And, you spend your entire life, getting experience. And so, while it's totally fine to do 12 years and then 4 years of college, realistically, what really needs to happen is you kind of space out education as you go on throughout your life. And that's what I did. That's what I'm doing. You go through and you don't know. It's ridiculous to think that you can figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life without actually having done it. And that's very much how I felt when I went back to grad school in my late 20s to get a master's in education. Because I had been out of school for several years and I just decided that what I did in college the first time, I don't enjoy it, which was communications. I just didn't have a place in that field. And really, it was just kind of a jerk-off major anyway. You can't really go to college and sort of learn how to, work in a newsroom and do journalism without actually being out in the world and doing it. And so I decided I wanted to do education. And then I went through 2 years of getting my master's in education before I was finally in the classroom teaching at a public school. And when that happened, I was like, I don't think I want to do this either. I'm interested in education. I'm interested in like learning content and, communicating it to students. But the process of classroom management and administration is just like a total hassle and a total bore and not enjoyable and frustrating. And yeah, it's like that was getting experience, that was wisdom, right? So, I got my master's and I was out of school for a few years. And while I was doing that, I suddenly fell into like this role, which is using my education master's in a different way, which was creating an education program at the park that I worked at and running field trips and being like, okay, like, so this is what it's like. When you go through college, you don't necessarily have to, do what the major pigeonholes you and tells you have to do. You can use your major in a variety of ways. And finally, I got a teaching job at a private school and that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do public school. I wanted to do private school where I actually had a say in what I taught, how I was able to teach it, and all that. And then just, so now that I'm in my 40s, I kind of have an idea of what I actually want to do when I grow up. It's just continually attaining wisdom and being in a position to take that wisdom and apply it to something practical. I think that's the nature of being an adult, not necessarily being old. And so it's weird. Like while I am physically 40 years old, I think honestly, energy-wise, I'm really probably still a teenager. All right, it's the next day now. Just thought I'd step outside to take a break. Had a little bit of a Maker's Mark whiskey. I had just a little bit left in the bottle, so doing a little day drinking. It's afternoon, right? So somewhere 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and didn't go out and deliver food today because I've been doing a little bit of online tutoring Yeah, as part of my deal with the graduate school, with them paying a stipend to me every month and also paying for me to go to classes and complete my master's degree, I have to tutor in the writing center at the university. And even during the summer, because I am taking summer classes, so, and they're still paying me over the summer. So I on Tuesdays and Thursdays I do correspondence tutoring, which is essentially like students send me the drafts of the things that they're working on, their essays, their papers, and all that stuff, and I basically just give them comments on Microsoft Word and send it back to them. And it's pretty chill. It's relatively laid back. And honestly, during the summer, it seems like it's been kind of busy, or slow, excuse me. The opposite of busy. It's been slow. Much slower than the fall and spring semesters, which is to be expected. In the fall and spring semesters, the freshmen, the undergraduates are compelled to to come to the writing center. They have to complete something like 6 writing center appointments a semester. So we get very busy with students who are forced to come to the writing center and forced to get help with their papers. But during the summer, so far, it's just been graduate students like me. It was very weird last week because I was tutoring. I was tutoring during the week, but I was also teaching summer camps. I was teaching, 6th graders how to write plays, and then I was immediately transferring to helping medical students write their write their applications to grad school, to med school. So that was a very, very different change in weather from 1 minute to the next. And sometimes I would the kids would be off writing their plays. They would be by themselves, and I would just be giving them a few minutes to write, and I would be over there doing my tutoring. So it would be like going between helping a med student sort of talk about the lab work they've done, the internships, the residencies that they're working on, and then going to helping a kid write about who farted the loudest, and But yeah, that's just been my summer in a nutshell. Just going back and forth between all these different jobs. Some of them require like a lot of skill and a lot of patience and temperance. Like summer camp and all that. And then others just require like no skill at all, more or less, and just are a lot more relaxing, like delivering food. And yeah, the tutoring today is just kind of like in between that. It's can be a little bit stressful because you want to give these students really good feedback, and you want to make sure that you're making sense to them, and that can be kind of hard to do when they're not sitting right there across from you. Like during the year, I tutor in person. They actually, I'm like in the same room with them, and if they don't understand a comment I'm making to them, then you can read it on their face, even if they say, okay, I get it. And you can help them from there. But when you're just giving them some comments, you're hoping that you're doing the best. So, yeah. Yeah, I've been doing that today. I've got a little mini cigar here. A Partagas. I can't read the label. I need glasses, I think. I need glasses. Superius Importos. I don't know. This is just one of those cigars that came with a sampler pack that I got from Vitola the other day in Mountain Brook. So I'll try this out in just a minute. Yeah, like last night when I got home from delivering food, I did another job that I get paid for. Yeah, this summer, one of my professors that I had in my spring semester asked me to help her with a few things this summer, and so she's just sending me things to work on, and I'm kind of helping her out. So I think I'm gonna like help her with some research a little bit later that she's doing. She's the director of freshman English, and so I was working with her this spring in a class, in a teaching practicum, because I'm teaching in the fall, as I said, and in order to do that, they don't just like throw you into the college classroom and let you teach students. You have to do a whole semester where you understand the university's policies on teaching freshmen. You understand how to write a syllabus, what kind of assignments to give, expectations to set. A lot of it was kind of redundant to me because I was the only one in the class who had actually taught before. But I mean, nevertheless, like, you know, teaching college is kind of a completely different beast than high school. So yeah, this professor, she's like she's a doctor of I don't know, she's a doctorate of something, but writing pedagogy is what she mainly focuses in, you know, the teaching of writing. And so she's doing some research on that, and I guess I'm supposed to help her with it. But I've been helping her with just like a lot of kind of menial tasks for now, like updating the faculty handbook for the English department. I've been helping her do that, and that's what I was doing last night. And it was just a lot of very tedious work. She kind of sent me some notes of what to update and what to keep. And I was just going through a PDF and just editing things, and it just, yeah, I mean, it's not very exciting, I guess. But it's money, it's work. And I was very honored to be asked to do it. It was very nice of her to ask me to, if I wanted to do it or not. So it's nice. It'll be a little bit of extra money for vacation next month. So I'm going to light this cigar here. Yeah, that was some ASMR there. Some manly ASMR, you know? I don't know when that became a thing. YouTube videos of people making sounds. It is the punchline to a good pirate joke, you know? What's a pirate's favorite YouTube channel? ASMR. I just came up with that. It was pretty good. Yeah, so just doing a lot of work this summer. So strange, just working from home. I know this is like a reality that we've all been dealing with in recent years, but I go back and forth between whether or not I enjoy it or I really don't. Like days like this, I think I'm kind of enjoying it when I'm just on my own schedule. Like I can do this tutoring any time before 9 o'clock tonight. And I've done 2 appointments and I only have 2 left, so I can get it done any time today. Of course, I've got class tonight, but I'm not too worried about that. It can be distracting sometimes, of course. Like when I was teaching from home and I was actually teaching kids on Zoom, that was, I did not enjoy that very much at all. It was kind of nice for like a couple of days because, you know, you just have to get out of bed and walk like 5 minutes to your 5 steps to your computer. Having a hard time getting sentences out right now. But after a couple of days, it just was like not really enjoyable. Because just mixing your work-life balance up is difficult in the best of circumstances, and when you're working where your life is, it can make you anxious and distracted, and with all the chores that constantly have to happen and the dogs and the cats, and it's I looked into actually getting a co-working space where you know you have like a dedicated desk that you go to, or you can rent out like a private office for a certain, you know, fee per month. And I thought that would be nice, just getting up in the morning and just going to my own office, and where I could just get work done in silence. But there's a lot of choices in Birmingham to look at, but I don't know, they're all just kind of expensive. I think like the cheapest desk that you can get is like $300 or maybe a little bit less than that, but just to go into like a shared community space and work around a lot of other people that you don't know. And that would almost, I think that would just almost be like more nerve-wracking in a way. Because, you know, sometimes I like to just sit there, I'm working, but I'm not like actively typing, or I'm just thinking. I'm sitting there at my desk, and if I were doing that and other people were in the room, they would like see me do that. And that would probably put me in a position, or put them in a position to be like, you stuck? And I don't know. It just wouldn't be good. And there's all these online platforms right now, these productivity platforms right now that you can go on to that will actually help you maximize your time. There's this one that I saw called Cave Day, where it's like a certain membership. They all have membership fees, I guess, because it's expensive to run these businesses. I don't know. I've never run a business before, but you know, they all have these membership fees, like, and it's something like $95 a month or whatever. And basically all you do is you just log on and you're like in this big Zoom meeting with all these other people, and everybody goes around and they all say what they're working on. And then there's a moderator in there who like sets a timer, and he's like, you know, okay, 15 minutes, go. And then everybody just works for 15 minutes. And I guess the idea is that you're holding each other accountable. And I thought about that, just trying it out. I was like, yeah, there's long periods where I'm just sitting in my office and I'm not doing anything, but I'm trying to do something, and maybe this will help me be accountable to myself if I actually have to tell people that I failed at trying to get work done. So I thought about doing that, but I don't know. I just decided, no, can't I just like go in and tell my wife, hey, this is what I'm working on, and give me 15 minutes and then come in and tell me how I'm doing, or ask me how I'm doing? So I don't know. I don't know if that would really work. I don't know. I've been pretty productive lately. I haven't really had any moments of just outright procrastination. Usually because when I'm procrastinating, it's because I'm stuck on something, like I'm trying to write a paper and I can't think about what I need to write next, or I can't get my ideas in order. And really all the work that I've been doing lately is just menial and administrative, and I know exactly what needs to be done. It's just the act of sitting down to do it. And so once I'm in that kind of headspace, I can sit down and focus. So it's just weird being at home. No matter how many years I've taught, no matter how many years I've been a student, just being home in the middle of the summer is just evocative to me. It just always makes me so nostalgic for when I was a kid. And, you know, I had the summers off, and which sounds so amazing when you're in school. And then when you're about like 3 weeks into the summer, it's just, you feel kind of isolated. Especially me, when I was a kid, I was like the only kid my age on my block. And so really, unless your parents were putting you in the car to go see other kids, like to go over to your friend's house or whatever, or they were coming over to your house, it was really just you all day long in your house, just trying to find ways to amuse yourself. Of course, a lot of times that was just like watching television. You know, you get up in the morning and maybe there's like some cartoons on, like Nickelodeon or whatever. And then, of course, when you're a little bit older, middle school and all that, you know, there's maybe like MTV or... It's like I watched a lot of MTV when I was in high school. It's kind of like in the late 90s and early 2000s. That was a lot of... reality programming began to take over around that time, like watching a lot of the Road Rules, and then in the afternoon they would show music videos. You know, it'd be like Total Request Live with Carson Daly. Yeah, and yeah, but I mean, television only got you so far. And me being me, I've always felt incredibly guilty when I just sit in front of the television for too long. So I got to find other ways, other things to do. And a lot of times that was just like walking outside in the woods. Fortunately, my family kind of lived in this woodland area where there was like a lot of places to like walk and everything. And if worse came to worst, if you really just did not have anything else left to do, you would like just sit on the porch and read. And I think honestly, like, you know, that was something that was so unappealing to me for a while. And then I just started reading a lot in high school, and it became kind of the thing that I would want to do more of. And, but yeah, just being around the house all day long, and you just getting used to like the house sounds. And that was like, talk about early ASMR. Yeah. And I think that's what it's like still being in the house in the summer. Like, even now that I'm in my own apartment and, you know, my wife's here and all that, the sounds that the house makes during the day in like mid-June just always take me back to when I was a kid in the summer. Just those sounds are ingrained in you, and just the sounds of like the air conditioning. Of course, my wife and I don't have central air, so we have fans all over the place. We have like a window unit, and a lot of other fans in the house. And that's really like being at my grandmother's house, because she didn't have central air either. You know, my grandmother's house up on Sand Mountain in Georgia. And that reminds me just like the sound of oscillating fans, just kind of like over and over again. And the sounds of snoring dogs. taking day naps next to those fans. And then, of course, like the whistling leaves, right? That kind of like sound that you get when it feels like it's just constantly about 5 minutes away from raining, right? Like it is now. It's like the sky's really gray, and yeah, and just that kind of wind. I don't know. Wait for my laundry to finish right now. Got some laundry in the dryer. So yeah, I've been working a lot this summer, and I've been trying to get back into like playing video games or something. Just that's really the only time of the year that I have to actually invest any kind of time or energy into playing a video game. Is during the summertime. And I talked on the last show about how I had woken up in the middle of the night and I decided I wanted to play this game called Mafia 3. And I downloaded it on Xbox, and it took like 7 hours to download, so I didn't get to play it that night. But I did get around to playing it earlier this week. I had like a couple of nights where I was turning it on and I was playing the game, and I stopped. It wasn't like engaging to me or interesting. It just was kind of the same thing over and over again, and I may get back to playing it. I don't know. The main reason that I downloaded it is because I just really liked the setting, and just talking about the summer. It was set in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the 1960s. And obviously that's like the New Orleans is like this kind of great southern city where that's obviously experienced all those southern maladies, crime and natural disasters and all that stuff. So I wanted to play a game that was set in New Orleans. And yeah, it just didn't fully engage me. A lot of the reviews that I read were very positive of this game. Of course, they said that it was kind of repetitive, the same thing over and over again, like you drive somewhere and do a mission and all that. But they said other than that, the story's really good. And so, yeah, I was curious about this. And, you play like this Vietnam veteran who's just returned home from the war. And your family like owes all these debts to this Haitian mob or whatever. And you have to go and negotiate with them. So, I don't know. It opened up in a very strange way. It had like this title card at the beginning of the game that said, we recognize that cultural insensitivities that were in the time of this game not considered insensitive. Nevertheless, we wanted to include these cultural insensitivities in order to honor the people who endured them. And so, okay, I mean that's almost like the Disney thing where they tell you that this movie that was made in the 1940s includes certain like racist imagery, like Song of the South or whatever. I think recently Disney went and edited The French Connection, that classic 1971 film, one of my favorite films of all time. You know, they omitted a scene where Gene Hackman uses the N-word. Hi. How you doing? I hope you don't mind. I took your clothes out and put them on the dryer. I had to get some clothes in the dryer. Is that okay? Yeah, I put them in the bag. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
She started coming around front out there.
Did she really?
Yeah, and I've been feeding her out there for about 3 days.
Yeah, that's, man. That's good. I'm glad because we haven't seen him because of, you know, that girl's cats that are always hanging around our house.
Yeah, they took over the neighborhood.
They did, I know, and
they come over there and eat too.
yeah, but I'm glad that she's coming around. And,
Yeah.
Yeah,
At
that's
least
good.
I think she'll come. Maybe not every time, not every day. I think she'll come enough she can get some nutrition.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I feel better about it.
that's good. Okay, that's good. That was Miss Mary, who lives in the next building, and kind of sharing the laundry unit with her right now. She was coming around to let me know that this cat who was hanging around our house ended up coming to her house. Hi. It's about to storm. It's about to storm. It's about to storm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, so anyway. So yeah, this game, the developers put in this just warning beforehand, and I kind of knew what that meant. And yeah, sure enough, soon as the game started, the N-word is used like by every character almost every other minute, and I get that. I understand that you're trying to portray the time accurately. I would understand this if it was done with like a movie or a book or something like that. Video games are a little bit differently, and the reason being is because the end goal of a video game is to for you to play it, and have fun with it. And I've never found video games something that you ascribe much cultural value to. Although I know that there are people out there who would totally disagree with me, and I know that there are games out there that have some serious cultural cachet, like the Zelda games and all that. But there's something that's just a little bit different about a game like named Mafia 3. And it would be different if the guy was using the N-word. They were using the N-word a lot. To show how hard this guy has it. In New Orleans, Louisiana in the 1960s. But they're using the N-word all the time, and then you're like going through this story, and every single mission you end up just like slaughtering people, taking your gun out and just killing people over and over again. It's just not very realistic. And again, people keep on telling me it's like, the story's really good. And it's just like most stories to me don't have this character that you're supposed to care about going in and just like plowing down all these people, even if they are shooting at them. It just doesn't happen that often in, movies and books and all that. And again, I know that, games are just the ultimate goal of a game is just to have fun with them. Some of them are just like, pressing buttons and just shooting people. But I just got tired of that. And it seemed like a weird contradiction to just say, like, we're going to honor the people who endured hardships by saying the N-word, and then having that person in the game who's enduring all these hardships just go in with a machine gun and just mow down a bunch of Haitians. So, ooh, it's raining outside. I got to take shelter. And welcome to the next morning. After I got rained out yesterday, I tried to record more of the show, but I just never got a chance. I had to go back inside and do some more work for my professor, and then I had to go to class, and I had a test last night, so I had to study a little bit. I think I did pretty well on it. Yeah, this is the last class that I'm taking as part of my graduate studies. I think I mentioned that before, but I don't know. This is the third day I've been doing this show. I don't know if I've done a show over the course of 3 days ever in the, I guess now 13-year history, on again, off again history of the Midnight Citizen show. I usually do them in one sitting. And it's kind of difficult to do a show like this because I'm just honestly not really even sure what I had for breakfast this morning, and I've only been up for like an hour, so yeah, I don't know. I had this is my my last class of graduate school. And after this, as I know I said before, I go in and I work on my thesis. And I got to get that done. I got to get the proposal turned in at some time in the next month and a half. And I haven't even started working on it yet. So yeah, you got to turn in a whole proposal, which is like a big paper unto itself, before you can actually work on the proper thesis, which is anywhere from about, I think, 30 to about 60 pages. So, yeah, I intentionally held off to take this class that I'm taking this summer until the very end. It was almost like a reward I'm giving to myself, I guess. Or I just took a class that I knew that would be a little bit more low-key. It's a linguistics class. It's the name of the class is Grammar and Usage for English Teachers. And so, as I said, I am in that class with a bunch of undergraduate students who are training to be teachers, and graduate students who are also training to be teachers, and some of them who are already teaching. And the funny thing about this class is that I have actually taken it before. I took it back in, I believe, 2009, the summer of 2009. I took it with the same professor. And so yeah, it was very. He looked at me because he remembered me, and I think I've said this before. Like we live in the same neighborhood, and see each other. We run into each other at the grocery store, and he asked me the first day of class, like, "What are you doing in here?" And I said, "Well, I'm going for my master's." And he said, "I thought you already had your master's." I said, "I'm doing it again." He said, "Oh, okay. Well, welcome back." Yeah, it's weird that again, I know a lot of people are talking, and somebody in my own class the other day made the statement that college is a scam, and there's no doubt that there are some weird things that colleges make you do, redundancies and whatnot, like taking the same class twice. And, when you transfer college to college, a lot of times credits don't transfer, so you have to take the same classes over again. And I suppose that that's a little bit silly, but every college does things a little bit differently. And that's just, I don't know, I just kind of look at it as like the cost of doing business with higher education. You just know that there are going to be some things you got to do that just don't make any sense. But show me any other aspect of life where that's not the case, and I'll give you a penny. So yeah, I got to take this class again because I got to have like a linguistics credit in order to finish graduate school. And this class and the other class are the only ones that there's another class called generative grammar, which I've also already taken. So, and that's another 400, 500 level, but it's not offered this summer. So there it is. I could have waited until the fall and taken this class and just had the whole summer off to I don't know, to work on my thesis and just do other things, but I just decided to go ahead and get it out of the way because in the fall I'm going to be teaching, as I said, and also working on my thesis. And so I just figured just get one of the three knocked out. Just have more time in the fall when everybody else is busting their ass. So, yeah. But yeah, I saved this class. I knew I had to take it, and I saved this class for the end of my graduate studies just because it's like the only class that you take as an English graduate student that doesn't require you to write any papers. It's basically just all tests. And, you know, if you took any kind of grammar in middle school or high school, it's pretty much just the same. You know, you diagram sentences. The brown fox jumped over the wormy log or something like that. Identify the subject and the predicate and all that stuff. And yeah, the idea is that it's supposed to train you adequately enough in grammar to go in and be able to teach it to students, which I've taught grammar to students many times. But the interesting thing is that because I am being taught by a linguist who is you know, quite brilliant, really. You know, he really does teach us the whole picture, the big picture, and really what the public school requires and what really secondary education requires is a very, very, very minuscule part of what he's teaching us. So he's teaching us about, you know, phrases and their heads and clauses and their heads and ditransitive verbs and you know, subordinate clauses. Obviously subordinate clauses are being taught in schools, but a lot of the stuff that he's teaching is really not even approached when you're teaching kids. And that's just me. That's just my experience teaching in a private high school. But also when I was student teaching in public high school, or in public high school and in public middle school, some of the things that he's talking about were not approached, such as different verb tenses. You know, the preterite, plain form, plain present, and really even some very basic stuff, like the past perfect, things like that. So, yeah, we're learning like all the big picture stuff, and then I guess we're going to go into the, you know, a lot of these guys are going to go into the public school system, and it's going to be whittled down to just like, you know, can they make their subjects and their verbs agree? And, right. Yeah, standards in public schools are shrinking. And you don't need me to tell you this. I'm sure you know it already. But it's really a shame. And there's definitely a few high horses in the barn I can get up on this. But I won't do it. All I'm saying is that some pretty shocking statistics have come out in the past couple of years. With some studies saying that upwards of 60% of American high school students are not reading at grade level. And here in Alabama, they just passed this literacy act where if students are not reading at grade level by the time they finish the third grade, then they have to repeat the third grade. And I don't really know what they were thinking with that one, because we're just going to have this whole smattering of kids being left back probably beginning next year. I think that's when it goes into effect. And yeah, like where I taught, I worked a lot with dyslexic students. That's what my school specialized in. We had reading interventionist people to work one-on-one with students who were dyslexic. And the thing about it is that most public school systems in this country, especially the ones in Alabama, are not required to teach to test students for dyslexia. In many cases, the parents have to do that privately if they suspect that their kid has a learning difference, a reading difference, or whatever. And in many cases, that's actually not caught by the third grade. So you see where I'm going with this. A lot of the students who are going to be repeating the third grade here in Alabama are probably just dyslexic, and they're not going to know that. So they're gonna be held back for an entire year of academic and social development, because people think that they can't read, when in fact they can. They just need to learn how to code, letters and phonemes differently and all that. It's really a shame, and it's also like one of the reasons why I just got out of secondary teaching, is because just as a high school teacher and as a secondary education teacher, you're there in the trenches, and a lot of times you really are taking a lot of the brunt of the blame for students not being able to read at grade level, when in fact it's just so many factors. And everybody knows this, but I don't know, it's so much easier just to blame the person who's working with them every single day. And I'll admit, as a teacher, I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't always teach as best as I possibly could. But I did go in there, and I think I tried every day. I think I did. And it's very much just, on-the-job training. And no matter how much school you have, how much education you have as a teacher, you're never going to be good at it unless you get into the classroom and you do it every single day. So I just got out of it because it was difficult seeing this problem of students just not being able to read, and the very obvious problem was right there in front of us, and just nobody seemed to want to address it. And the reason why kids can't read like they're supposed to is because, and especially worse for dyslexic students who have all these barriers in front of them, is because we just live in a culture where literacy is not really a prized trait. It's not it's not monetary. It doesn't make money. So yeah, that's my feeling about it. I'm gonna have another cigar. I know I've said that I've been cutting down on cigars, and I have been, but I went through all of my cigar, my stop smoking medication, my Chantix, and I've been off of it now for about a week or so. And yeah, I called my doctor yesterday and got another prescription for it. I'm gonna go pick it up today, but that's later today. This is now, so I'm gonna have a cigar now and enjoy some more cigar ASMR. Yeah. So I think I think I did pretty well on that test last night. I haven't taken a test in years, but it's still just the same. You know, you study for it. You don't know if you're ready for it until it's time to take it, and then you get it. You realize how much you didn't study, and then you just do the best you can. Or sometimes you just walk out on it. Oh. Yeah, this is summer in Birmingham, by the way. I think will forever be this summer of 2023 will forever be the summer of McConaughey Watch. McConaughey Watch. Yeah, Matthew McConaughey's been in the local news lately because he's down here in Birmingham filming a movie, and he's apparently renting a house in Mountain Brook at an undisclosed location in Mountain Brook. Of course, they're not going to tell anybody where he's renting, but all summer long so far, people have been just spotting Matthew McConaughey around the city, whether or not he's filming a movie or he's just hanging out at the local coffee shops and bars around Birmingham. So, you know, Matthew McConaughey, he's of course he was in True Detective. About almost a decade ago now was True Detective Season 1, which is still to this day, I think, just like one of the best seasons of television ever. Just absolutely everything that I love. Like, talk about just Southern Gothic coming out of its ass. Hard-boiled detective stories. Yeah, just a fantastic show. That is coming back, I think, this year for a 4th season. I think Jodie Foster's going to be in it, which it'll be nice. Yeah, Jodie Foster hasn't done anything in a while. Jodie Foster used to be all over the place. It's like Silence of the Lambs and Contact and Taxi Driver, and then she just like went away for a very long time. But I guess now she's coming back. So, but yeah. Matthew McConaughey is in town. I'd like to run into him and say hey to him. I think he'd be a cool guy. One of my favorite comedies of all time that nobody else really cares about is the movie Ed TV. It came out the same summer as The Truman Show, and I like it a lot better than The Truman Show. The two movies are similar because they're both about people being followed around by television cameras. In The Truman Show, he doesn't know he's being followed around. You know, he like lives in this gigantic dome. Designed to look like the utopian American town, and he's just got this system of cameras, hundreds of thousands of cameras following him around, recording his every move all the way from birth. It's a very interesting movie, and indeed, yeah, it's like a lot of people think that they're being followed around, that they're being watched. And psychologists have come up with a whole term for this. It's called the Truman Show syndrome. I've had it from time to time. But yeah, Ed TV is a movie where a guy consents to being filmed. And they just follow him around everywhere he goes. He never can leave the cameras. It's like 24/7. They film him while he's sleeping and all that. While he's like having sex in a scene. It's it's a much funnier take on that kind of movie, but still like very prophetic. So the movie comes out in I think 1998. Really before reality TV took hold. I think that was a year before Survivor started. And people were just still having such a hard time understanding the concept of reality TV. Like, reality's not interesting. You got to write stuff down. Nobody wants to watch a bunch of cameras, you know, following people around all day long, just doing menial tasks. As it turns out, that's exactly what we wanted. Of course, we wanted like heightened realities of those menial tasks, you know. So, yeah, it's so strange because MTV had started doing The Real World years before Survivor, and they really were dedicated to the reality aspect of it, at least for the first couple of seasons. And then the producers started getting in there and kind of getting everybody upset with each other, and just and it was the Truman Show. But yeah. Ed TV is just all about cameras following Matthew McConaughey around San Francisco, just seeing what kind of hijinks he gets into. Like, he works at a video store, and they follow him into the video store where he's like a stuck-up film clerk, but he's not like stuck up on like independent films or anything. He's like, he's snobby about Burt Reynolds movies. And these kids come in and they're like, "I got the perfect movie for you, Smokey and the Bandit." They're like, "What's so great about Smokey and the Bandit?" He's like, "Burton Leon Reynolds Jr." And then they don't want it, and he says, "Get the hell out of here." Oh, man. But yeah, the movie's just very prophetic, because like at the very beginning of the movie, when the cameras start to follow him and nobody's interested, the show is barely staying afloat, and then like something big happens in his life, and suddenly everybody starts watching it, and the show gets like all these advertisements, and you get to watch Ed essentially become like an influencer. People are paying him to like pimp their stuff, and I don't know. But yeah, it's a fantastic movie, and I love Ed TV. So yeah, Matthew McConaughey is in town. I saw a report on the news the other day. There was this local reporter coming to me from a coffee shop down the street. And she said, "Matthew McConaughey was in here the other day, and by all reports of those who met him, he was all right, all right, all right." That's what the reporter said. And then the graphic, like it cut to a graphic right after that said "Crisis in Ukraine." So they go from Matthew McConaughey to "Crisis in Ukraine." I just love how tone deaf the local news can be sometimes. So... But yeah, all right, all right, all right. That comes from the movie Dazed and Confused, which was his first big movie. I think his first movie ever was... there was a remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that he was in. Which makes sense because he's from Texas. And before that, I think he was like on an Unsolved Mysteries episode. So... But yeah, Dazed and Confused. I just remembered that movie came out 30 years ago. This year. Wow. Dazed and Confused. I didn't see it when it first came out. I was far too young. I was about 11 years old when that movie came out. But I did see it. My older sister, Melissa, had rented it when I was like in 8th grade. And... watched it with me, and to this day is like one of the best moments of just watching a movie ever. Just discovering something, because I was going into high school, and a lot of the kids in that movie are going into high school, and it's kind of trying to in a way it just prepared me for what it was like, where it's like you go into this place as a child, and then you come out as somebody who looks like an adult and kind of sometimes gets the same privileges as adults, but you're still learning. And yeah, Dazed and Confused is one of the most important movies, probably of all time. A movie that just perfectly captures a moment in time, and it captures the characters, the people of that time, of the late 1970s, which I wasn't alive for, but I just have to imagine that it's very realistic, So, yeah. Well, I think I'm going to call it there. I don't know how long the show has been, but I hope you've enjoyed it. This is Mike Booty, the Midnight Citizen, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of my coffee and my cigar. And I got to go in in a few minutes because I have accepted yet another job for the summer. Another moonlight job. Yeah, the parent of this kid that I usually tutor during the year reached out to me and asked me if I could work with her son over the summer on preparing for an entrance exam to a private school that she wants him to go into. So I got to go in there in a little while and work with him. So it just never ends. You know, the weird thing is like I think I'm actually going to pull down more of an income, at least this month and probably next month than I was when I was teaching. I think that's the thing about moonlighting. It's a lot more work sometimes than your regular job. But it's fun because it's almost like the more you work, the more you make. Which the same cannot be said of like your primary income. You go in and you work a certain number of hours, you kind of make the same amount of money at the end of the day. I guess unless you work as like a car salesman or something like that, you work on commission. I don't know, but I think I'm going to call this episode Moonlighting. It's kind of a boring title, but I think that's been the theme, wouldn't you say? Okay. All right, I'll see you next time. Keep your eyes open.